World Conference. And this is the framework that we in the Caribbean will be seeking to align ourselves with. And as some of you would have already understood, that the regional framework CDM strategy is already very closely linked to the Sendai framework, but then there's some more work to do going forward. The project is a regional project, including a number of countries from the region, and the project seeks to enhance disaster risk reduction for resilience through political advocacy, strengthening capacities, and the exchange of information, knowledge, and good practices in the Caribbean by achieving two main results: regional planning instruments and national priority setting mechanisms for DRR in the Caribbean integrate post-2015 framework, and DRR decision makers and stakeholders in the region and at national level have access to best practices from DPECO and other partners in the Caribbean to support informed decision making and awareness raising DRR. And these activities require partnerships, and the Ifrc is one of those partners that we're working with going forward, as well as as you would appreciate, SEDIMA. But there are other partners at the local and regional level that we want to interact with, because there are tools, initiatives that would have been started under previous DPECO action plans, and then others that we may not be aware of, for example, as it relates to the early warning systems. And these are things that we want to make available to policymakers so that we can have more DRR informed decision making in the region. And so, on the key result one, we're going to be looking at the regional DRR frameworks incorporating elements and indicators of the international framework post-2015. We've already started this work, and this will continue as the indicators for Sendai are developed. Then we can look at how they match up with the indicators under the CDM strategy. The DPECO partner complementarity and coordination facilitated by the organization of one regional programming and one final workshop. And we've already had the regional programming workshop last week in the Dominican Republic, and some of the results in terms of early warning systems and joint activities, cooperation activities that we can undertake together were mentioned and highlighted by Renette before yesterday. And you would have added your thoughts as it relates to how we can also cooperate in terms of main activities, and then also in terms of areas of cooperation as well. Two new DRR country documents supporting countries to assess and prioritize their DRR actions, and one of these is for Haiti. And these documents, in addition to the work that will be done in terms of the workshop, which is point number four, in terms of integrating gender, and I presume that this is going to be expanded to include vulnerable groups. These are things that go hand in hand, in that the country document captures the status of a country in terms of what they've done into DRR related at a particular point in time. And there are 8 up until last year, the end of last year, that have been revised or prepared. And these 8 can be updated as new things come on stream. For example, early warning systems are put in place, and then the national office can update the document so that people can see what things are in place in the country for DRR. And this information can be used to help other countries, other communities, to actually come up to scratch in terms of EWS as an example. And so all that is going on with respect to the DPECO projects and any other projects that you're aware of, I think it would be useful to share this information with the national office so that they know and they can update the documents as we go forward. The next slide. Activities under result area 2, communication guideline prepared and disseminated in order to ensure proper communication and dissemination. This is something that was developed under the last DPECO action plan, and we want to share this with all our partners so that we can learn more about how to communicate DRR messages. DPECO related information and experiences disseminated, joint productions featuring DRR practices also developed, And overall, regional guidance provided surrounding the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. And this is important because we found that when we look at experiences that are shared, we find a lot from the Spanish speaking countries, we find a lot from um, Latin America, and there are experiences to be shared from the English speaking Caribbean. There are great things being done, but they're not being highlighted. They're not coming to the fore. So we need our partners to recognize that it is good to do good work, but we also have to highlight it so that others can see what is being done, and they will have information also to do things in their various parts of the their neck of the wood. And as I said, this is being implemented at the regional level. ACS and CDMO are the key regional partners. We also have other technical partners like Ifrc and the National Disaster Management Offices. Of course, we have to work hand in hand with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. The next presentation that we will have will be from UNDP. Unfortunately, our colleague Marlon Clark is unable to join us this morning, so I would just go through his presentation really quickly on his behalf. Right. So UNDP, they're implementing a regional project entitled Strengthening Resilience and Coping Strategies in the Caribbean through Integrated Early Warning System. The project has a renewed focus on early warning systems based on organization strategic plan. Since 2009, they have implemented projects or initiatives related to early warning systems. The project is funded by the PECO, and it has an 18-month implementation period, which began May 2015 up to November 2016. Overall, the budget is approximately US $760,000, and some matching funds are provided. In 2015, the budget was approximately US $290,000. The project beneficiary countries are Barbados, Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In total, they're working in 7 communities in these 4 participating countries. The outputs, regional harmonization and knowledge sharing of early warning systems, which include toolkit and case study development, knowledge of risk and vulnerability enhanced. This will be done through the VCA, the CAP and RISK EWS programs. Right? The structure for the CAP Common Alerting Protocol based EWS developed or enhanced the purchasing and installation of the EWS system as well. The lessons learned and challenges. The use of established networks and build on previously existing systems. The relevant agencies should be involved early in the process. Internet connectivity, dynamic IP addresses. I guess these are the things that that are necessary to have available. Building on previously existing EWS. The structure for EWS based on existing common alerting protocol based EWS in the Caribbean. The experience sharing from Anguilla and Montserrat as well as other beneficiaries. Thank you. Sorry I had to read it, but it was just a bit last minute. Right now, I would do a quick introduction into the Ifrc component of the PECO funded project, and this will be followed immediately by a presentation from Marjorie on the CEWS toolkit, as well as the multi-hazard app from Marco. So just one quick second while we pull up that presentation. Okay. So the IFRC funding from ECHO is to support a project entitled Caribbean Communities Organized and Prepared for Emergencies. Just to give a quick overview of some of the IFRC projects, as I mentioned, the CCOPE, ECHO, IFRC, and other partners that are benefited. The lead countries for this one is Grenada, Jamaica, Suriname, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Other countries would be indirect participants such as Dominica and St. Lucia. Also, we have the capacity building or SARA project that is funded by the Canadian Red Cross, where Jamaica would be participating. We also have the RETA project being implemented in the Bahamas, Belize, Guyana, Jamaica. SLIC, Saving Lives in the Caribbean, that is funded by the American Red Cross, and also the Sustainable Development of Caribbean National Societies project that is being funded by the Japanese Red Cross. Now, there are three main result areas that is featured under the COPE project. Result one is focused on resilience programs, which are harmonized with national frameworks and the comprehensive disaster management framework. Result two is focuses on regional knowledge management through the harmonization and application of existing risk reduction tools. And result three is focused on community resilience activities, which includes communication and advocacy. There's a fourth component that is supported by the French Red Cross and the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Red Cross. And this component is focused on institutional partners, disaster management stakeholders, and communities improve through their disaster risk management knowledge that is strengthened through coordination and test their preparedness for response. Right? Now we know, and this has been the theme for the day and a half that we've been together so far, that the community is at the center of our work and early warning systems. Without the community, our work would not happen. Now, I just want to touch briefly on this toolkit, but Marjorie would go more in depth in a little while. The CEWS toolkit was developed by the IFRC. This is a training toolkit that aims at strengthening early warning systems in a developing context. Now, this methodology can be applied using two types. A type 1, which is linked to existing national early warning system. So if a country already has a functional EWS system, then the type 1 would be more applicable. The type 2, if a community is not linked to an existing early warning system, or they have the interest of driving their own community early warning system, then the type 2 approach would be best suited. The outcomes are that CEWS efforts in the Caribbean is strengthened, or that we create from scratch a community-driven EWS. It's kind of difficult to read, but the output is to have a regional EWS dash review, 2 regional community early warning system, training of trainers conducted in the Caribbean. Who will we work with? Again, the communities. Our partners, the National Disaster Offices, the National Red Cross Society, hazard monitoring agencies such as the Met Office, CIMH, the seismic unit, as the case might be. Other partners such as UNDP, community-based organizations. Then we have the Universal Multi-Hazard App. This app was developed with funding through USAID, OFDA, and the American Red Cross. Uh, so the app is a simple to use life-saving information tool. It has quiz functions to test knowledge, advice for, before, during, and after an emergency. It's localized, the content is localized based on the country you're from. Alerts and push notification, it complements amplify existing EWEA systems. Opportunities for partnerships. COPE is a regional project intended to scale up national society work in collaboration with the National Disaster Offices. Also with our partners, CDMA, UNDP. Creating a balance and linkages between capacity building of national societies with national disaster risk management programs. Joint working involves, among other things, regional communication strategy, standardization, public awareness, and public education messages, establish links with the multi-hazard apps in each of the countries, development of guidelines for sustainable community response team, as well as VCAs in communities and the training of trainers. Support to national and regional disaster risk reduction and climate change policies. Emphasis on monitoring, evaluation, and reporting aligned to the comprehensive disaster management, monitoring, evaluation, reporting framework to support a more harmonized planning and reporting process. Thank you. So that is a rapid overview of the Ifrc COPE project in the Caribbean. As I said, now I will have Marjorie, who would come and do a quick presentation on the CEWS toolkit, and then immediately followed by Marco, who would talk a bit more about the multi-hazard app.
Especially with the light and phone. Okay, thank you. Let's go quickly through the Community Early Warning System guiding principles and training toolkit. Some of you have the guidance. Sorry? Here? No. Oh, here, right? Some of you have already the guiding principles and the training toolkit in hand, the participants which are here, but participants from which are joining us on web stream, they can find the information available online. And some of the materials are already translated in different languages, so to facilitate the use of the guidance. I will go very quickly through this information, which is the foundation and where we come from with the work on the community resilience at the Red Cross and Red Crescent National Societies. As some of you know, the framework for community resilience was approved last year, and it was updated, the one that was developed in 2008. So this is really the guiding document for all of us in our work, and how to have risk-informed decisions, holistic approaches, but especially needs-driven and people-centered approach, which is really the core of the work that the Red Cross, Red Crescent National Societies are doing. So this is our idea on how we will work with communities in the future, how those characteristics, how a community could be really a resilient community when they know how to deal with all these issues that they can face. And as you can see, there are many elements, and somebody before mentioned that how we can work with communities that have other priorities also. People's living, people money, people resources, etc. But this is exactly how we together can work to be able that this happens. So this is our goal, and the idea is now to discuss a little bit more on how the community early warning system can support communities to be more resilient. And sometimes some of our communities doesn't know exactly how to deal with the information. And this is an element, an important element, on where the community should be very much involved and engaged, really, as part of the process, as not only passive receivers of information, as we discussed probably before in the session that we have just finalized. But this is what they can do, how they can act on this information, and how we can support that process, because it's not processing in one way, it's in two ways around. So what we find, and why we embark a little bit on the community early warning system process, is because a lot of experiences were floating around, but we were not really aware exactly where all this information was. And I think this is the main element that I'm seeing here in the Caribbean in the three projects that are just presented. The idea to really learn from the experience, learn from our good practices, or practices in general, because sometimes the bad practices can help us to really work in a different way. There is a lot of advances, a lot of new technologies, and a lot of new ways that we are now having access. Our countries are better equipped. Most of the countries now have a lot of efforts on creating a strong early warning systems. And we are seeing in the region also how this regionally is being developed. But still, the role of the community is something that requires a little bit of discussion. Are they the last mile, or are they the first mile? In which way? Is top down, or which way? No? How this role can be enhanced. And of course, the issue for communities to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, without information or adequate protection on what to do in case something happened with them. So the Red Cross was doing a work to really have a participatory, and did a very long literature review first, before we embark in those products, to really be sure what is the gap, what was the gap, and how we can really complement what was required. So this is where we identified some experiences. For example, in West Africa, there was a project working on the community early warning systems. Very interesting experience that was in two countries. But how we learn from that experience to develop these guiding principles and the training toolkit. It was very interesting that something was already developed. So we did some field tests. We validate this information. We invite other zones and regions to come with us and to learn from this experience, to came up with something that really was aligned on what was required. Because many organizations already had a lot of experience, documents already developed. So the community early warning system guiding principles and training toolkit is something that complements those efforts and not to replace any effort. This is something which is very important. The Federation had a memorandum of understanding with WMO. So the idea is to complement the work that the national med services are doing, and to support the process, to link with the communities. The Red Cross is probably part of this community. The volunteers are in those communities, living there. How we together can work to really be sure that we met all these possibilities, these mandates, national level, local level, global level. And this is where these two products came into alignment. The guiding principles is a more strategic document to support the decisions when you are embarking in early warning systems, how to work together with the med services, how to work together in the design, since the beginning until the end of the processes, how together we can work with other organizations as part of these community early warning systems, how we can ensure that part of the process. And the training toolkit, which is more an operational document, is a document that you can find with the facilitator notes, with the PowerPoint presentations, with the toolkit, the trainings, with the tools that you will require. Everything is available in the memory stick that you receive. Everything is there. And these two documents work in time. Next one. So the idea is really to have two products that can help you in the decision on how to deal with the early warning system. Is not something that probably other organizations already have to complement that. So this is why it's very important that you have both documents and you use both documents at the same time. Next. So the guiding principles, there are 13 guiding principles that you will see in your materials. And of course, something which is very important is that the early warning system is not a standalone process. This should be very well related with the DRR processes that we are doing, and you already know that. But those guiding principles can help to make better decisions on how to work with others on this area. No, the next one. So very quickly, those 4 elements for the early warning systems are, for us, the crucial elements on where we are focused all this work. Risk knowledge, monitoring, we have our friends here that help us to understand better on that. The response capability, how our national disaster risk management organizations and national Red Cross societies, and how we communicate the warnings. And sometimes we are too much focused, in this part of the process. But a comprehensive early warning system should have 4 pieces together. So, the toolkit, very briefly, is a learning by doing process. It's highly participatory, so communities are with us in the room, working with us, not without them, with them, on how they can be part of the process, how they can be active actors in this process. And it includes also a training of trainers piece on how we can work together with our volunteers, with our staff. And as Brenda mentioned, there are 2 types of training. And really the 2 types of training need to be decided together. If we have a strong national early warning system in place, or if this early warning system is not too strong, how we can strengthen together with the community's participation. But not communities as a receivers of the information, but communities as an important actors, part of the process. This is why we call community early warning system, which should be very well connected with the national services, with the med services, with the authorities who are the ones responsible to do the warning. So communities can act on these warnings, not on the disasters, as mentioned before. This is how what the community and warning system toolkit and guiding principles are. That's it. I will finalize with this.
Thank you, Marjorie. At this time, we have Marco. Will be speaking on the multi-hazard app.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Go up. Thank you. All right. So actually, I will be speaking about the Universal App Program. So we have heard in a couple of days about the multi-hazard app. We actually had an experience from Suriname where they're actually using it. So we're going to see a bit further what it is about. So, share ownership model. So the idea of these apps is that they are sponsored by the GDPC, the Global Disaster Reference Center based in Washington. So these apps are a coordinate effort between the different national societies in a country and the other organization working in disaster risk management. How many of you have actually heard about the apps? Who have actually downloaded the apps? We have one person. Right. So these apps are meant to be for researchers, practitioners, but also daily basics people. The idea is that we can actually reach all the people at the national level with high quality information. So next one, please. All right. So the value proposition for the app is pretty clear, and on fringe cases where smartphones access is not as good as we will be or haven't been adopted, we know that the app will be relevant in the near future. Processing numbers. So right now we have 70 live first aid apps on 31 languages. On hazard apps, we have 17 in 4 languages. Most of these hazard-specific apps we already have in the Caribbean. And over 1.5 million downloads worldwide. Here in the room, we have one. All right, so. All right, the first aid app, it follows the Ifrc guidelines on first aid. It also have a shared ownership model. So the idea is that those apps can be highly modified, but not shows the GDPC, that is the ones developing the app, but also the different national societies can modify the information that will be displayed on these apps. Collaboration and localized content. So this is what I mean. So a specific country can have a specific information that they want to display in that app. For that, it's very important that the national society works in collaboration with the different agencies of those countries. In this case, for the first aid app. Now the hazard app. So here we have an example. Actually, I think this is for the first aid. Okay. So I followed the advice of this app and saved the life of someone who was having a stroke. The paramedics told me that the person could have died 2 minutes later. Okay, now the hazard app. So we already saw about PAPE. So the hazard app contains all the key messages from the PAPE, the PAPE key messages and guidelines. It's also important to notice that those messages could be modified for all the countries' needs. So even though have the general message on a specific hazards, they can also be modified by the National Society to have in-country information. Water and disaster alerts messages to the general public. So these alerts, they come from the app, but it's important to notice as well that the National Society needs to work with the different NGO, in the different disaster management agencies. So the information that is being displayed actually on the apps is information that comes from reliable sources. So as I was mentioned, so this information should come from official alerted agency messages. It has a strong reference to the GAP. We saw the common alert, exactly. So all these alerts, they already have this format will actually be displayed on the app. We have the what now. So once we have alert about a specific disaster and a specific event, we have some follow-ups on what can the people do in those situations. We provide authorized agency platforms for sending CAP compliant alerts to users with data feed. So as we mentioned before, even though this is a global initiative, all the apps can be heavily modified at the national level. But this has to be done with the National Society in coordination with those agencies providing this information. So we have here another example. So this app saved my life. I think there's, okay, so there is an example, another feature that this app has, that is the I'm safe feature. So that means that in case of an emergency, you're actually able to send a notification to social media through the same app to your relatives, families, friends, to let them know that you're actually safe. So there will be know that if something happened at your location, you're able to just hit and unsafe. So about the previous slide. So right now there are 64 countries that are participating in the process of using the app and having the information, the national information in the app. But we can see that it's pretty much being used at a global level because of the immigration that has been done of those users going to another places. All right, so I think that's my time. Thank you very much.
Only one announcement that you will receive these presentations, and in this link you can download the apps, the blue one. So.
All right. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Marco. Okay, so we just had the 3 presentations from the 3 agencies that are receiving ECHO funding for this round of project. So following now, we would have some other presentations from some other organizations. We'll hear a bit more about their role and the work that they've been doing in early warning system. And then we would have one from the country level to hear about their experiences. So at this time, we will have the presentation from CIMH and followed by JICA. And then finally, we will have the one from Trinidad.
Hello, good morning all. We'll be speaking in twos this morning. So I just want to guide you through some of the support we can lend as a regional organization that's working in weather, water, and climate. Look at the weather, water, and climate. This slide, I'm not going through this, but essentially it provides you with that background as to what we do and so on. But the first slide I'm going to show you is simply a mosaic of the products we have climate related. We provide information based on temperature, rainfall, extremely wet spells and wet events, maximum minimum temperature, whether or not these would be likely to be above normal or below normal for the forecast period. The forecast period is essentially up to 3 to 6 months in advance. So we provide that early warning information that can prepare you for what's coming way ahead. Now that's a different type of ball game to what you're accustomed to have about planning and preparing is very key in mitigating. And this is where we assist you at a longer scale. And we've provided a lot of information, particularly recently on drought, and the Caribbean region is currently experiencing some fairly drier than normal wet season conditions, and this would have been falling on the heels of a very dry season. And we anticipate, based on our forecast, and that's updated every month, mind you. We update this information every month. We provide this on a mailing list for anyone who wants it, but we also have our own webpage that you can go on and find any of these products at any time. And as I said, this comes along with an alerting system for drought, telling you whether or not you are recommended, because your national services normally reads warning, but these will recommend to Met services when you should have concern or not about drought. And the concern stages can vary from watch, warning to emergency. I now hand over to my colleague who talked more about the short-term information, weather-style information that you guys are more familiar with. So I invite Sean.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning. You will see my colleague Adrian provide you with some information as it relates to some of the climate products that we produce. Some of the other things that we also involved in is the installation and commissioning of instrumentation and other bits and pieces that are used as part of our early warning system, primarily for flooding and other hydrometeorological related events. In addition to that, we also have a way of managing all this information. You would have seen the kind of products that I said before, and the instruments that we install generate a series of data. So how do we manage this information to support disaster management? Well, one of the things that we've actually been doing is to showcase this platform called the Caribbean Literature Platform, which is what you're seeing here. So, I mean, in limited time that I have, the idea is to kind of go through some of the ways the platform is being used, to kind of give you a snapshot of what it's all about. So essentially, it provides a way to manage information that can be used to support disaster management. And it also early warning system capabilities built in within the platform, which unfortunately you don't have time to go through, but if you need more information about that, you can always contact me. So what we're looking at here, previous slide, is essentially satellite information. So the different ways in which to observe what's going on within the atmosphere is one way. We also have information from stations that we have installed on the ground, whether it be rainfall related, soil moisture, and so on and so forth. And that incorporated with the satellite information and perhaps soundings and information from weather radars gives you a good idea of what's happening in the atmosphere over large space that being the Caribbean. The platform itself also uses hazard information, exposed aspects of what you call exposures rather, where you can also link your hazards, which may be your rainfall in this particular case, with critical infrastructure, whether it be roads, whether it be location of shelters, whether it be where your bridge locations are, and also have an idea of the areas that may be at risk. Because most countries may have some level of hazard information in terms of maps, landslide risk maps, areas that may be exposed to flooding. So having all that information in one place provides you with a picture of how the hazard itself may impact on the community. Next slide, please. And the way that's done is being able to incorporate things like your population demographics. That information is also available on the platform. In this case, looking at Barbados, where the different districts have been broken down. So having the hazard information, as I said before, you can get an idea of the population that may be at risk. Next slide, please. And we saw previously to this presentation some couple slides on an app being used by Ifrc. We also utilize similar type of crowdsourcing approach where we look at being able to incorporate impact information. So as hazard unfolds on the ground, how do we actually manage the impact information? When you're in a disaster office, you get a lot of information coming in very rapidly as it relates to what's happening on the ground. So the apps such as Shady and so on, which are linked directly to the platform, which gives you ways of managing information and spatially mapping it as it relates to where these things are occurring. Next slide, please. So in summary, the platform itself just manages and fuses information from different sources, whether it's hazard data, economic data, social data. It's using information together to support online decision making. A GIS-based platform. So once you have an internet connection, anyone can access it. If you need any more information, feel free to contact me or my colleague, and we will share it with you. Thank you very much for your attention. And have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Sean. At this time, we will have a presentation from Mr. Nishi from JICA, followed by the representative from Bolivia in Trinidad. We're running close to the end of our webinar time, so I will give the opportunity for those of you who are joining us online. If you have any questions, then we will try to address them before the session ends, and then we'll open the session for those who are present here with us.
Good morning. My name is Lucia Kinishimura. I'm a JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency, a regional expert in disaster management. I'm going to explain about my missions in the region. But I have to explain a little bit about the background of my activities. It's not on the screen, but JICA carried out 2 regional projects in the past. The first one was from 2002 to 2006. That is the Caribbean Disaster Management Project, Phase 1. And the second phase was carried out from 2009 to 12. And the participating countries are Belize, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, and St. Lucia. And the project was based on the request and agreements with CARICOM and JICA, and requested by Barbados, the Sibera, currently the Sibera. And after the project, the outputs of the project includes the community gathering system, and floods, hazard maps, and community disaster management plans, among others. And after the project terminated in 2012, 3 years have already passed, and now Jamaica and St. Lucia jointly requested the dispatch of JICA experts to follow up these activities. That is the reason why I'm here. So that is the background, and these 3 items are closely related to the community warning system. The first one, I have to survey the current status of the current follow-up activities. So I have to visit 5 countries which participated in the JICA project and survey the current status of the follow-up activities for the pilot communities in those countries, and identify issues, if any, and to give necessary advice. That is one big mission of mine. The second one, the current overview and follow-up meeting. This idea came from the Sibera when we discussed with the Director General. And what we are thinking is to hold this meeting in conjunction with CDM conference in Bahama in December this year. It is the meeting is to share information and to exchange views on community flood warning systems for its improvement and replication. The meeting will be a kind of side event of the conference, so that we could expect the maximum participation from the region. And current participant states and other civil members are expected to join this meeting. And during this meeting, we are expecting that the current participating states to make a presentation on their current status or past experiences, and we could discuss how to continue the activities. And the third thing is improvement and refunctionalization of early warning systems in Jamaica. In Jamaica, which didn't participate in the JICA project before, they have already developed their own flood warning system, community warning systems. And the request from Jamaica includes to improve and to install the current outputs to the selected places in Jamaica. So to survey the current status of 7 community warning systems in Jamaica, in cooperation with Port Penn, Water Resources Authority, Met Office, and others, parish disaster coordinators. And to update or improve flood prediction tables by current floods data in cooperation with Water Resources Authorities. In Jamaica, they have 7 community flood warning systems, but so far I found that some of them did not work, has not worked for during the last few years. There is a lot of reasons, but one of the main serious reasons is that the ownership of the community system is not clear. So legally, nobody is responsible to maintain and sustain the system. That is the essential problem. But at the same time, we have to update the prediction tables, because it has been already past several years. We need a periodical update of those information. So that is my brief explanation of my current and expected activities closely related to the early warning system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nishi. At this time, we will have Ms. Jadu from ODPM in Trinidad.
Morning, everyone. I'm Rahana Jadu from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management in Trinidad. And in the 5 minutes, I'd like to just tell you about a successfully implemented community-based early warning system project in Trinidad. We do currently have other early warning systems initiatives that are ongoing and upcoming, but this is one that sorry. It's okay. Technology. Right. So this is one that has been successfully implemented in Trinidad. So it's a Cuban model. It's called the Risk Reduction Management Center Initiative. Next slide. And in partnership with the UNDP and CRMI in 2013, this project began. And the actual model is essentially a capacity building tool, and it is designed to assist particularly local government authorities in managing and effectively using risk information for decision making in disaster management, etc., while fostering increased levels of community interface and participation. And that's the key thing that needs to come out of this. As Ms. Soto-Franco had said, and I want to advocate, we need to have a bottom-up approach. So in Trinidad, we adapted the tool, for want of a better word, to look at building the early warning capacity in vulnerable communities by establishing early warning points in these communities and building the capacity of the stakeholders to mitigate risk and the impacts of hazards. As part of the Cuban model, the early warning points are essentially positions in the vulnerable communities. It can be a physical point, it can be someone's home, but the actual early warning person is trained to monitor and communicate with their community in the face of an impending hazard, or should they notice anything that is posing a risk to the community. It was successfully piloted in the Mayaro Rio Claro Regional Corporation in Trinidad. We have 14 municipal corporations in Trinidad, and it is the intention to replicate this model in all the corporations. So imagine, if you will, the roots of a tree spreading into the ground, and the roots coming up straight up to the trunk. That's the network we want to create in Trinidad. At the base of the roots will be the early warning points in all vulnerable communities. They speak for those areas that become cut off because of flooding, etc. And the flow of information must come straight up to all the way to the office of the Prime Minister. I didn't have time to do that flowchart, but if you understand, the early warning points will communicate with their disaster management units, who then communicate with our office, and then we send the information up to the office of the Prime Minister. Next slide, please. So, the main outcomes. We had training workshops, we built capacity in geographic information systems and community-based early warning. Again, community-based. It was a very participatory approach. We did not go in there to throw information on the community. First, we wanted to know what's happening in the community, and we wanted them to tell us what are your vulnerabilities. And we did that through a participatory mapping exercise. And we did some tabletop simulations where they got to use the communication equipment and follow, practice certain standard operating procedures. We outfitted the Mayaro Rio Claro Risk Reduction Management Center, which is actually the disaster management unit. Again, we didn't have to rename it, we just built the capacity in the disaster management unit to fit in with the model. 2 early warning points were set up in vulnerable communities in that regional corporation, and those were equipped and stationed in high-risk communities. The early warning points were actually containers that were set up in the communities, and they have computers, they have bunkers in case the staff need to stay overnight. They have equipment that they can use if they need to act as first responders and go out in the community, whether it be to advise people to evacuate or to assist with evacuation. So we're talking about helmets, boots, radio equipment, etc. We use open source software when we did the GIS training so that the staff can actually jump onto Google Earth and map incidents or map information and feed that up to their disaster management unit. And also the Cuban Technical Assistance Mission enhanced the above activities, and they also are providing future guidance for the future application in our other municipalities. Next slide, please. Okay, so successes, and I sort of stole from our exercise yesterday. Technology, two-way radios, GIS. We try to make it low tech and low cost though, because one of the challenges is maintaining this type of technology in the communities. So we literally talked about poles that can be painted for you to monitor water levels in a river, really simple, low cost, low maintenance methods of the community monitoring for themselves, parameters that they know contribute to impacts and hazards. Replication, yes, we are. This particular endeavor has now received funding for the replication, but the process of replication is under review. All key elements of early warning systems were addressed in the community-based early warning system training, and what we essentially did was almost like a trainer. We handed over after a community-based early warning system toolkit that allows them to develop communication plans, develop ICT materials for their community, and take it into their own hands, basically. Partnerships were developed formally and informally. It was a multi-hazard approach. The training targeted, it was done, for want of a better word, in a more generic way, looking at all-hazard approach. Gender and vulnerable groups, I have to say, were considered in the training, but that was one of the gaps and lessons learned, in that I did not feel that the representation was there for the training sessions, and we look at that as a lessons learned for future training sessions. A full-scale simulation was conducted post training, with after all of the standard operating procedures were transferred to the disaster management unit, and that was successful. Of course, there were gaps. For example, not everyone was up to par on communicating with two-way radios. It's usually they go first to the cell phone, but they need to know how to communicate on radios in case those other systems go down. It was proven effective real time last year, November 2014. This municipal corporation had a high impact flooding event. I went in on behalf of the UNEP and did sort of like an after action review, where the disaster management unit did say that because of this system, their response was cut down by hours. Early warning points actually went out every half hour and monitored rivers and communicated with communities in terms of raise your assets, move your animals, etc. All the things that they need to follow when you know the flooding is impending. And of course, it was a people-centered approach, because the early warning points are members of the community, and we trained community members. This is an example of a tool used, and this is up in the early warning points and the disaster management unit offices, and it's a flowchart that demonstrates the roles and responsibilities of all persons in this system, and how it is connected, how the information flows, and what needs to be done if the hazard is going to occur or if not. And we have all the key stakeholders are included in this flowchart. Right, so lessons learned. Participatory approach creates ownership and it changes risk perception in the community. I can attest to that. The mapping of vulnerabilities, they know what's happening in their community. They know where the persons who cannot hear properly, who will need assistance in evacuation, they know where these persons are located in their communities. So that's the approach we took. at training sessions, participation did not fully represent key stakeholders, for example, the main first responders. I think that persons from the vulnerable populations should have been included, and maybe as an implementing agency, we need to pay more attention to that, because that particular part of the project was arranged by the disaster management unit. So we could look at correcting, addressing that in the future. Monitoring and evaluation frameworks and sustainability plans are recommended for future application. And again, as JICA had indicated, we have to create ownership of the systems and we have to sustain them. That has to be clear when we embark on these type of projects. Building early warning capacity from the ground up, that is in the communities, provides a foundation, and in our case for the implementation of a national multi-hazard system, which is the direction in which Trinidad is going right now. So this is just an indication of some of the physical supplies at the early warning points. We provided with generators, first responder gear, radios. Vulnerability maps came out of that exercise, and also ICT materials that they can provide based on the context of the community, but also that we share brochures with them, etc. Because that's one of the roles of the early warning point as well, to be able to give that information and build awareness in the communities. Thank you very much. Did I do the
Thank you. Okay. So we are at the end of our streaming, but we will continue the discussion. So I don't know if anyone who are online had any questions or comments.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with a comment. I think this one comes from Spice Isle in Grenada. And it says, thank you for the opportunity to join to this high voltage webinar. I call it high voltage because of the number of fantastic initiatives currently unfolding in the region. I have had the opportunity to work with many of you, and I appreciate making linkages. This strategy certainly provides the basic for future collaboration building on the best practices here. We have also a question from Leslie, and it is, can Guyana access the lessons learned and knowledge through UNDP? I think that goes for the first presentation that we had.
We can follow up and share that information with you. Unfortunately, Marlon is not here to answer that on behalf of UNDP.
All right. I think the other major thing that we have is a lot of the viewers would like to have the presentation. So I think if you guys send us your email through the chat, we can send later on a Dropbox folder with all the presentations, not just for the webinar session, but for the rest of the sessions that we have had in this couple of days. Let me see. I think. Okay, so what is the name of the app? So I think right now it's called the Hazard app, but there are like different types of hazard apps. So I think
Yeah, it depends on the situation that each country face. The appropriate hazard app is developed.
So yeah, the name will be changing to the countries. And the other thing is, how can we access to those apps?
At the end of the presentation on the hazard apps, there is a link on how you can download the hazard app. It's in the last slide. There is the link to download.
GEPC.atredcross.org.
Yes.
Yeah. But so
preparcenter.org content/Caribbean hazard apps. But you will have the information in the presentation.
the presentations. Okay, so I think that's it for now.
Okay. All right. So let me. So I just want to thank those of you who joined us online this morning. I hope that it was time well spent, and we look forward to hearing of your own experiences as it relates to early warning systems. So at this time, we will end the streaming.
Thank you.